Welcome to Cash Flow Savannah. This is episode 37 with Lenore Moore. Chandler, how are you doing today? Everything going well for you? We are recording on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day. I am doing well. We have been not too busy, just a few maintenance items here with Sid was here. Just trying to get some plumbing issues that we have been trying to get the right plumber, I guess, to get the actual problem instead of like sending somebody in and they doing the wrong thing. And then as well as we had some smokers in a property, so going through that process.
How do you handle that? What's the plan when you have a smoking situation? This is obviously a short-term rental. We're probably having a guest checking in a few days later. At this time of year, it's a little slower. How do you handle that?
So with smokers, it's tough. I mean, thank goodness this wasn't a quick turnover because if it was, it would be tough. What we do is we have a couple of days. I tell the cleaners like just scrub the property. Like you just have to because when a smoker's in a property, like that smoke just it sticks to the walls. It's just everywhere. It sticks to the ceilings. So I'm just like clean it as good as you can. Use because like a lot of cleaners don't know. I I like research. This is weird. I research a lot of cleaning stuff just because I need to know.
Yeah.
Most cleaners don't, but I do just to kind of tell them, hey, like this stuff does this to smoke or whatever. And if you get the right chemical and the right stuff, it kind of cleans it up. But and then we have a big ozone machine. After they clean, I try to get that ozone machine and we just let it run all night. The
Mhm.
ozone works well with smoke, because it kind of gets those particles up. I tell you, the ozone with like pets is more difficult
Hmm.
than smoke for some
Interesting.
reason. Because pets, it really you have to clean it out. Like most pets, it gets in the couch, so you have to really use an extractor to pull it up. But with smoke, it's that ozone does a pretty good job with it. So, and the
Awesome.
ozone machine is just literally this machine you can put on, and you can run it for 12 hours if you want, and it's this chemical it spits out that's supposed to get rid of bad smells. So,
Well, and the best thing about it, I have to brag about, Sid was here for a minute, is that these are all part of our management. Like this is at no cost to the owner, right? When we have a
no
smoking
cost
situation,
to nobody.
but we make it expensive on the guest. You want to talk about that? What if Jerry Joe smokes in property A and we're coming for him?
Well, yeah, they not really expensive if you think about it. We charge everything on insurance.
That's true.
All the guests pay an insurance through us, and then we have to create invoices for all this stuff to get reimbursed. So we have an ozone kind of invoice that we charge, and then the cleaners obviously have to charge a little bit extra because they're just spending more time cleaning. Um, so yeah, but we charge it through insurance. Insurance, we're pretty good with the insurance. We
Great
almost
to decline.
always get it back. So
Yep.
yeah, I wish the guests got a little bit more of the kickback, but um, yeah, we just do our job. It gets done pretty quickly. So
Yeah. I should have clarified. The guest gets a bill. They don't always pay it. Sometimes they do actually, but the
yeah,
guest gets the bill. But this is where having a property manager really pays for themselves because let's say owner A does it all himself. He's not going to have all the capabilities that have he's not going to most likely have an ozone machine. If he does, it's very expensive. If and then we're very good at claims. We very rarely do not win a claim. And most people are always shocked at our numbers that I've talked to in property management. But that's been one of our specialties is getting those claims. And again, the owner never knows. And you mentioned the word quick turn, which is what we call when a guest one checks out at 10 and the next one checks in at 4. The clock is ticking. And even if someone did smoke or there is a pet smell, we are going to handle that. And that is our job is to keep that property going, making money, and that keeps the owner happy, that keeps us happy. And So yeah, we kind of never know what's going to happen on this turn. But phase one is the cleaning team. Phase two is Chandler and his team. And well, we make it happen. That's great. Yeah. I hate
Yeah,
that you're dealing with smoking, and we don't deal with it every week or anything, but several times a year we have a smelly thing on our hands.
we do. And the
Yeah.
ozone machine, highly recommend getting an ozone machine if you don't have one. So,
Yes. Very
what
good.
you been up to? I'm talking too much. What you
No,
been
you're
doing?
not talking too much. No, I've been good. It's been a little slower on the real estate sales side. I do work with Sid was here, but I handle a lot of the transactions on the real estate side, and it's been good. Just, lots of good questions from buyers. I have a lot that are very new. And I guess my best advice is that really before someone contacts an agent as a buyer, you need to get pre-approved from a bank. And I see it all the time where they come to me and then they want to start immediately looking at properties and buying in Savannah. And of course, I love that. That's my entire job. But that's not going to happen without that pre-approval. So I've really kind of been changing around my processing and saying, really, I'm happy to meet you. Let's talk about the market. I love talking about Savannah and how things are rolling here. Cranes are everywhere in Savannah, and I keep telling my buyers like they're building the warehouses now. Like the Hyundai plant is probably the biggest one that's going in. It's a $2 billion project here, 9 million square foot warehouse. Think how many workers they will be having. They're hiring thousands of workers later this year.
Mm,
Our convention center is doubling. So we have starting in late April, we have tons of conventions coming in later this year. There's like we see it coming and it's not here yet. So any buyer in Savannah that can get in, get a property up and running and ready for that onslaught of workers that are coming due to all the new jobs, we're just getting set up for that. So I'm really proud at Sid was here and with Team 912. Like we've got a solid foundation. We have such a great understanding of this market, and everything that my people have been buying, they've been getting snapped up, rented, and they're getting in line for buying number two. So I'm excited. It's been really great to see what's happening here in Savannah. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
sweet, sweet. And I am excited about this interview or podcast that we have today with Lenore Moore. I love that name. Um, so it's going to be interesting. I've
Yes.
heard all about her. I'm excited to meet her. So I know she's a good friend of yours. So I'm excited.
Lenore is such a good friend of mine. We didn't work this into the interview, but Lenore, we're in a group of multiple women. She is one of my just favorite people in the world, just in general. But we've all kind of worked out to where we each have accountability partners. And it's really based on what you have going on. So there are two that are accountability partners because they both just bought franchises. I don't own a franchise. I don't need a accountability partner for that. But Lenore and I are in our building phase. And so she's my accountability partner. And I love that so much. It pushes me because every morning I text Lenore. Usually it's 5 or 6 a.m. and she's an early bird as well. And I'll text her, Lenore, my mins for the day, most important next step is blah. I have to do it. And she texts me her mins and she also has to do it. And boy, we're going to fuss at each other if we fail. So she's really been a great partner of mine, to be honest with you, and that she's just really pushed me to accomplish stuff. And I make sure that mins is something I don't want to do. I don't say, Lenore, my mins for today is to drink a martini or a box of chocolate. I mean, that's
Yeah.
silly. So I always say, oh, what do I not want to get done today? Because I know she's going to kick my tail till I text her that I did it. And so Lenore is fantastic. She's a great person. She's a great real estate investor, and she's a really fantastic realtor with something to say. So without further ado, we're going to bring in our very good friend, Lenore Moore.
There we go. It's recording now.
Sorry.
All right. So Lenore, what got you into real estate and why real estate investing?
What got me into real estate? I always sort of had a love for it, right? So I started when I bought, my dad was an architect, and I used to like watching his drawings. He was hand drawing at the time, the mechanical drawings. And I bought a house in Pasadena when I was pregnant, and I decided to renovate it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just renovated the whole thing. And I picked out a house that when you turned on the water, in the kitchen, it shot out the back of the house.
What? That's hilarious.
So
Yeah,
was it
it shot out the back of the house.
so was it super distressed property or was it pretty
Super distressed property, and I was very pregnant, and I bought this house, and I decided to renovate the whole thing by myself. So I was like, okay.
so
Wow.
did you turn it and make a profit or was it
No, I lived in it. So yeah, but when I sold it, I think I sold it for like 150,000 more than I paid for it and put all that money into it. Yeah.
Wow.
okay, cool.
So
So
that's
after
kind of where your love of construction really came, because I've known you for a while, obviously, and I know how much you love construction.
I think it might have. I mean, if it's from my dad or just, I have that weird analytical mind. It's like half analytical and half creative, you know? So I think construction, seeing a vision, seeing a room, I would say to these guys, well, take down this wall, put in a door here, you know, add a bathroom here. And they're looking at me and I'm like, I don't know, it just feels like the right thing to do. And apparently that was a really good layout because people loved it when they went to buy it.
so I want to go into when was your first investment? Did you start in flipping? It sounds like you started in flipping, or did you buy and hold? What's kind
No,
of your
I started in flipping. I definitely started in flipping, and I wanted to, you know, my first property that I bought was I was at an educational seminar and learning about how to do what I wanted to do, which was to renovate houses. And I kept raising my hand. You know, you can't keep me quiet in a room. So this contractor walks over and says, "Hey, do you want a partner?" And I was like, "Sure, what do you need?" Because everybody needs something. So I needed a contractor. He needed money. He's like, "Can you get the money?" And I said, "I can get the money." Did I have any idea how to get that money? No. Did I have any money? No. But I said, "I will get you that money. I will figure it out." And I did. I did. It was a series of a hard money loan and a private lender who helped me out. She's like, "Lenore, this is going to cost you a lot of money." I'm like, "I don't care. I just want to get my first one done." And that's what it was. We pretty much broke even on that one.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about raising the private capital and how do you go about it? I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about raising private capital.
Mhm.
What are some
Yeah.
ways that you're able to convince somebody, or I like to say, just give them an opportunity to invest with you?
That's a great way to put it, Chandler. I think first of all, you have to decide it's your superpower, right? So I made it a point that this was my new superpower. And so my mind was like, I am going to find that person. I'm going to attract that person. So I started saying to people, "Hey, I'm looking for investors." And I had one under my belt or two under my belt at that point. And so once it was finished, it was beautiful. The kitchen was beautiful. And so I created a script of everything that I thought this person might ask me, because somebody said, "Hey, Lenore, I know somebody who might be interested. Why would she invest in me? I don't have any money behind me. I don't have any of this. I had one or two under my belt, but I decided that this was going to happen." And so I came up and I wrote it down, seriously wrote down a whole script of everything I was going to talk to her about, everything I was going to show her, sat in this beautiful kitchen that we had just done. And she literally was like, "You're the one. I've been looking for you." And I said,
Cool.
"What? Why me?" And she was like, "Because I just feel like you've really researched this. I love this room we're sitting in. I feel like you really are prepared and know what you're doing." And I was like, "Okay." And that's how it started. And she gave me, you know, the first opportunity for the next one I bought at a sheriff's sale. She paid for the whole thing. So she paid for that at 12% interest, and it was annualized. So that means 1% a month, right? So if I got done in 3 months, I had to pay, you know, I think I borrowed $100,000. So I had to pay $1,000 a month. Nothing out of my pocket, $1,000 a
Yeah.
month. We even paid for the renovation, you know? And so it was pretty amazing. And we flipped that into a positive and made like 45,000. And I invited her over. "Oh, I know something I did that's different than most people." I invited her to the property, introduced her to the contractors, and I also gave her reports. "Here we are this week. Here's some photos. Here's the stage we're at." And I let her know what we were doing. And as she started growing with me, I gave her a monthly investor report and said, "Here's how much money you invested. Here's how much money you've made. And here's how much money you made to date." And when we looked back like 5 years later, she had made over $80,000
Really?
and not really doing anything, but just moving money.
Sounds
There
like
you
you put
go.
a lot of work into that relationship once you had that going, which is very smart. And one of our other guests, Alex Chiappetta, talked about how, you've got to be prepared for those questions because any hard money lender or any private money lender, they want to know what's the purchase price, what's the ARV, how much are you going to put in it, what's your background. Yeah, that's great, Lenore. When you said 12% a year annualized, which I understand. I'm in the learning process of hard money myself. Were there any points that she charged you, or were there no points? Oh, you're so lucky.
I'm a no point girl. I don't like those points, right? If I have to, I will, but I really try to avoid the points because that's money just gone, right? So if you're dropping 100,000 in and they say 2 points, well, now you only get 98,000. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
$2,000 less.
Yeah.
And one thing I did learn was to make sure you ask for more than you need.
Mm.
So in the beginning, I was like, well, I don't want to ask for too much. And then I found myself shorting out
That makes
and then
sense.
feeling squeezed. But when I started to give myself a little bit of room and asking for a little bit more and I had a little bit more of a cushion, it went so much better. So that's one thing I would definitely say ask for a little bit more.
Well, and that's smart because it's not like you're going to take it all at once. That those come in draws. Am I right? And so if you say, "Hey, I'm going to need 50,000," and your budget is really 40, but like you said, leave a little bit of room. If you never borrow the other 10, you don't pay interest on it. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct, but I didn't structure it like that with her.
Mm.
I actually got the money deposited into Wells Fargo, and Wells Fargo has a process where you can, if you have an email address for that lender, they can see exactly what's going on the account. So for each property, I created a property account.
Mm.
So she saw her money go in and she saw it being taken out. And she saw me putting more money in if I needed to, add something if I needed. At that point, I wasn't, but she could see exactly when her money was being pulled out. And the one thing that she liked was I was paying her for the full amount. Because Julie, that's a great question, right? So sometimes I got stuck on one loan that I did in New Jersey that I had a big problem on because I was paying for the full amount instead of the draws. And you have to look at how that loan is structured, whether you're structuring it up for your private lender or if you're doing a hard money lender, make sure you ask that question.
Yeah, no, once they send you money, you're paying interest on it, period.
That's
A bank is the same way.
But this hard money lender, Julie, even though I didn't have the money in my account, they were still charging me interest. They were charging me interest. Yes, yes, I did not read the fine print because they said we've had to set this money aside for you. Therefore, we can't touch it. We can't use it. We're charging you interest. So it was my biggest loan to date. And that's the one that I lost money on in New Jersey is because I got squeezed.
That's crazy. I would say, would you recommend just staying away from hard money, or is it kind of just like,
No, love hard money, right? It gives you a
uh,
chance. So here's the thing. If I'm waiting for me to make as much money as I need to buy a property, how long is that going to be? It never would have happened. The hard money lending and the private lending gave me a huge confidence boost and ability to do something and to work out the kinks and to figure out how to really run my businesses. Without that, I wouldn't have done anything. Right. But instead, I had like 8, 10, 12 pretty quickly that I had done, learned each one, made some mistakes, learned some more, made some more mistakes. But it really allowed me to be where I'm at today, which is probably about 30 something that I've done, 34 that I've
okay.
renovated.
Oh, I want to back up what you're saying, Lenore, because I've bought a lot of properties with no cash as well. And I've never used a hard money lender. I now have lines of credit. When I first started, I was saving up the down payment and buying it. And then I had to pay cash for the rehab. But now I pull the money. I am my own hard money lender because I have a line of credit. I pull the money out. I buy the property in cash, rehab it in cash, and then I cash out refi and get all that back. Is that what you were doing? You're basically doing the Burr method, but using hard money. Am I following you there?
That's exactly right. So that cash that you have, and I did at one point get a HELOC on my house, right? So I actually HELOC'd my house and did my own on a couple of them, but I spread it out over 5. right? So that HELOC, I was bringing in some private money. I was bringing in my own HELOC money. So I bought 11 in 2021. And that's how I did that strategy. It was just different pools of money. But think about that, Julie, right? Like you're talking about, you had your HELOC. If you don't have that HELOC and you don't have access to it, but you can do the exact same thing, but it's going to cost, how much did it cost me? $5,000, $10,000, really, to make $35,000? I'll take that all day long. Sure. And that person becomes so happy because they're making money passively on a secure investment like real estate that they can touch and feel and know. It's not like a stock. You put that money in, somebody's making all those decisions, but they can actually walk on the job site and see what's going on. So
When you put those fees into your into the cost of the deal, like that just goes into your numbers, and the deal
Right.
either works or it doesn't. But you want to make sure it works with that extra interest amount that you're going to have to pay. But as long as the deal works, we're happy for the hard money to make his cut, the hard money lender to make his cut, because he's providing you a service. He deserves to get paid.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what makes business business, right? I'm willing to pay you for a service. And you'll hear me say, like, I want hats, t-shirts, cups, mugs, everything that says, if the numbers work, buy it. So when I run my numbers, those numbers are all in there. All my holding costs from my lenders are in there. All my holding costs for taxes, insurance, everything's in there and calculated in. If I'm like, okay, if I think I'm going to hold it for 3 months or 4 months, I'm going to put a 5-month time period in there just in case something goes wrong. I have a little bit of a cushion. But if all those numbers work out, I'm like, profit, baby, I'm still coming out with 50,000, 60,000, 30,000. It depends on how much money I'm spending. So the lower amount I spend, I'll take a $30,000 profit. If I'm spending more money, I want a higher profit margin. So that's how I always calculated it, because you need a little bit room for that cushion.
So you really started in flipping, and then are you still doing flips, Lenore? How did you, I know you have a portfolio, so can you kind of take us from those first few flips into when you really started to buy and hold?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it started out in 2016 is when I bought my first property. So it's not that long ago. Sometimes I give myself, I'm like, oh, I'm not going fast enough. It's not enough, but it's really not that long ago. So I have to remember. So I started out then, I became a realtor in 2018. So I could start to, get those commissions and then have some people on my team that were also looking for properties for me as an investor. I was still very investor focused, but I did start to figure out how to be a realtor and then work with other investors. And that started a whole different process for me, because now I was learning from other investors how to be a better real estate investor, and then teaching it back to my clients as investors. Was a beautiful circle that was happening. So then from there, when I actually ended up getting a divorce, and had a very low negative net worth, I realized I needed to start buy and holding in order to build my net worth and increase my own portfolio, which I only had 4 little properties that I negotiated in the settlement, and they were upside down or equal. They were not cash flowing really. They didn't have a lot of equity in them, but I knew I wanted them. I knew it was my jumping off place, that I could build that portfolio, stabilize everything, and then it was going to start working, which just started working actually last year. So I bought 11 in 2021. So I bought 11 buy and holds in 2021, pulling my hair out. Poor Julie got those phone calls. I'm sure I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And I had to hire some people. Some people worked out beautifully, and some people needed to be corrected, and those corrections were costly. So learned a lot there too.
So it sounds like what I love is like you just like take action. You don't really analysis paralysis is not your thing, or you just kind of you're like, hey, I need to do this, and you jump right in and go right at it and kind of figure it out.
Can I tell you about my first one that I bought in 2021? It was a 3-unit, right? And I was trying to get my investors to buy it. I wanted to make some money off this 3-unit in Allentown. And I kept saying to everybody, how can you not see these numbers are so great? Like, I was like, all you have to do is this, this, and this. And everybody, no, no, no. And everybody said no. And so I'm sitting there, it was early 2021. And I said to myself, why don't you buy it? Analysis paralysis, Chandler. I was so nervous. I was literally shaking. And I had put a call into the city because I had never really bought anything, outside of my marriage, like being by myself, like a solo person. I always had a contractor, somebody I was partnering with. And so I put a call into the city to ask them if I could create a special edition. And if that happened, the numbers really worked. So
No, Lenore, what
I
do you
was
mean by special edition? I'm sorry.
yeah, thank you for asking. So there was a commercial property on the back. So the way it sat, the building had 2 units up front. It actually had 3. It had 3 units and then a commercial property in the back, which had an apartment above and a garage on the bottom. But they were calling the apartment commercial. They're like, you can't let anybody live there. And I was sitting there like thinking about it and thinking about it. I'm like, well, if they won't let me make that 3 unit in front, I could sell this. I could rent this commercial property. I could rent the garage underneath. What if I busted a hole through that little unit in the back and made it one giant apartment? I could charge almost double the rent. And so I started thinking all these things through, but I needed to know if the city would allow that to happen. And just when I was thinking, how can I do this? Like I was literally praying, like, God, please guide me. My phone rang at 8:10 in the morning. I pick up the phone and it's the city official from Allentown. Who does that? The city officials don't call you. And she goes, hey, I got your message the other day. You can do that if you want to do that. And it was like this, like it was a gift from God saying, go. Yeah. Hi, God calling, just calling to tell you, yes, you can do this. You should really buy this property. And it was super scary. I'll never forget it. That was my first one that I bought in 2021, kind of under my own banner by myself, not having a partner and figuring everything out from there. And that led to 10 more that year. That
Really?
first one. And every time, Chandler, I got analysis paralysis. I was like, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Right. And I actually had a mentor that I called every time, and he would assure me, you're fine. You're fine. You've got this. Go buy it. You can do this. And really having those people in your corner makes a huge difference. I mean,
Oh yeah.
people in our corner.
Well, and I have to give a shout out to our group because Lenore and I we have a very unregistered, non-official group of women real estate investors that we're a part of. And these guys roll deep. I mean, Lenore and I, we're just hanging on to their coattails really half the time, but they have some serious, millions and millions and millions in real estate. And it's huge. I know all these deals and we all bring what we've got going on and we share it with our group and we push each other. And I know how much I've pushed you and you've pushed me and we've had it coming from all sides. And I want to say, I know I've watched you kind of process through these. And just like Chandler said, once you had that green light, boy, you go after it. So very impressive.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it without my group, honestly. Once you have those key people, there was the one guy who helped me, who was a big mentor for me, but then it was my women, my group, my tribe. I mean, my tribe was there for me, through all the tears of everything and the fear and working it through and saying, you got this, you've got this, you can do this. And a lot, and you want to partner up right away, right? Because it's safer. But they kept saying, you can do this by yourself. And I was like, what? By myself. Oh my God. But I did, I figured it out and made some mistakes along the way. And it's not like I didn't make mistakes. I still made them, but I recovered and I learned and then I applied, learn and apply, learn and apply.
And
There you go.
I want to share this for our listener. There's a lot of solo real estate investors out there. I was one for over 10 years where I was just in my own head. I would, discuss with my husband, but really no one else knew what I was doing. And it's once I started getting out there and talking about what I was doing and then gaining groups like the one I'm in with you and surrounding myself with other investors that were very confident with numbers and going into debt and things like that. So for the listener, if you have a lot of analysis paralysis and you have a hard time getting going, get around people that are doing it. It's going to really help with that confidence.
Completely. Run your numbers with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Bounce them off of them. I have a spreadsheet that I love to share. Chandler, what do you think?
I was like, I can't agree anymore. And I think me and Julie were having this conversation the other day. I was telling her, just growing up playing baseball and kind of I've always been very kind of to myself, and I worked out. I wasn't like posting on social media like most people do, up at 7 in the morning, working out, doing all that kind of stuff. And it was always low key. And all of a sudden, I just became this very good baseball player. And everybody like, oh, what in the world? And I was like, but deep down, I knew why I was. Um, and I was telling Jill, I was like, gosh, like I want to do things. I kind of like doing things low key and kind of just keeping to myself. But in real estate, it's a little different. You really, and I was telling her, I was like, you can't. You kind of have to let people know what you're doing. You need to talk to people. You need to network.
Mhm.
You like posting on social media is very smart. Like I don't really want to, but just letting people know what I'm doing and hey, I'm looking for houses or just kind of I guess building that community and getting around people is very very important. And I am kind of just now realizing that. I thought I was like, man, I just kind of want to do it by myself and not try to like let everybody know, but it's just it's not that's not how it's going to work. So
No. And those people that you share what you're doing with are going to hold you accountable.
yeah.
I, for the first time recently, I'm working on a book. Lenore's going to be in it. And I posted that on social media and I've had 48 people go, tell me about your book. Well, now if I
Mhm.
never finish, I'm a big old loser and I'm not going to do that. I'm a winner. So yeah, I agree, Chandler. You absolutely be posting, sharing, this is a team sport. You can, but it's highly unlikely. You cannot do real estate without a team. You need a bank. You need a contractor. You need all
Yes.
these different people
Yeah.
on your team. And so you doing it all by yourself. And that's what I used to do. I'd buy it by myself. I'd rehab it by myself. I'd rent it by myself. No one knew a thing. It took me forever. Once I started growing that village, man, I was like, Lenore, boom.
And thank you for saying that because it's not by myself, right? There's no way you can do this. I do have contractors, plumbers, HVAC people, electricians. I had property management for a while until I took it over back to myself again. But all of those people are so key. And bankers, I spent probably 25% of my week with talking to bankers and figuring out how to finance, refinance. There was a company that gave me my start. I forgot about them actually until just now. They were great because they called me up and they said, we like you, we believe in you. I was very young in like my buy and holds, and they gave me a loan. It was a revolving line of credit where I could spend money and then I needed to come up with 90-10. So they would finance 90%. I had to come up with 10%, and they came up with 100% of the construction loan.
Wow.
And I didn't have to reapply every time. I'd pull money out, I'd buy something, I would do it, I would take that cash, take that, now I need 10% for the next one, drive it into the next one, right? So that one was a really successful model for me.
Was that
And
secured,
just to
Lenore?
let you know,
Was this a signature
what's that?
loan or was it secured against something?
So there's a lot of there's a lot of funds out there, right, who have private money, large groups of private money. They're sort of like they're like a hybrid, a lender, but also being private money. So they're not a bank, so they can make their own rules,
Mhm.
right? They can make their own rules, but you got to be careful because if you mess up, they will take your property.
Hmm.
Right. So you have to be careful with that type of lending. It's super great because there's more flexibility. Sometimes it's a DSCR. So they're just asking for, you don't need as much paperwork. In this case, to get qualified for that loan, I had to go to full Monty. Like I had to give them everything. But once I got qualified and they realized that I had done a couple of these flips, the flips were key for them. They were like, yeah, we're going to let you do this. And they just said, we trust you and we're gonna back you on this. So
Were they putting a lien on each property as you bought it? Or
sure.
how did they
Yep.
secure the debt? Okay. So
Yep. They put a lien on each property. And then here was the beautiful part. Once I was finished, right, and we did the construction draws where I had to come up with a sheet that showed I'm going to do these are the construction things I'm going to do. They would send somebody to the site. I'd say I'd like a draw for this much. They'd check the work and then they would give me the money back for that one. Once it was completely finished, then they had a refinance program. So I refied all mine into 30-year mortgages at 5%. So
wow.
once everything was done and I stabilized it, got tenants in there, then I refinanced it for a 30-year at 5%.
Wow.
Now I did once in a while when that loan went up because it was starting to creep up, right? think I even got 4.75, but it got all the way up to like 5, 6 something. And I bought down that point. I did buy a point. So I bought that mortgage down for a 30-year fixed. I just penciled it all out and like, makes sense to me. If I want to give this portfolio to my daughter or keep it and just keep it for a long term, it made sense to do that. So that was a huge key.
That's a
Oh,
cool.
and
Never heard
hey,
of that.
Chandler, one thing, right? You talked about talking about people. When I was at Keller Williams, people knew that I was the investment realtor.
Yeah.
So they'd walk into my office and say, hey, I've got this house. It's like a hoarder house. You know anybody who's interested? I was out of my chair, bought that house that afternoon.
Yep. See,
Right?
that's the key.
Julie,
That's what.
got it. People have to know who you are and what you're doing. And at Keller Williams, people walked into my office all the time and said, do you want to buy this? Or do you know somebody who wants to buy this? Because they didn't know what to do with it. They were residential realtors. They weren't investors.
And then did you give them their fee just as a thanks? Like, how did you
Oh,
compensate
yeah.
agents for bringing
Yeah.
those?
Yeah, they got a commission. They got their, they had the listing, so they got the listing commission, right? And it worked out for everybody because they didn't have to have it on the market. It never even hit the market. I just bought it right off market. They got their commission
Those are
done.
the
And
best
they,
deals, in my opinion. Because
yeah,
when
and they were
somebody just
cash
knows that you
deals.
do that, and they're like, hey, you want to buy this? Those are the best.
We love those.
Yes, we do. Well,
Yep.
Lenore, we've talked a lot about lending, and it's very obvious, how many wonderful lending partners you've had over the years, and that's huge. Talk to us about property management. I'd love to hear more. As you're aware, Chandler and I both manage at Sid was here, and we are very proudly investors managing for other investors. But I know you have been through multiple property managers. So sitting on the side of things, which today you have over 20 rentals, 20 doors in your portfolio, but like looking back on, what you've been through with property management, can you give our listeners some tips? Like, what are some red flags to avoid when they're trying to find the right property manager? Because really the management is very crucial to the success of the rental.
Oh my goodness. I wish I had you guys here. That's all I could say. I wish I had you in Pennsylvania, right? Because you know what you're doing, you're investors. That's your first red flag. My first property management company used to have a rental portfolio, but they sold it all. So they're no longer investors. My second property management company had one car wash, but they didn't have any residential real estate holdings.
Oh gosh.
That's another. So red flag number one, if we're doing a little video, right? Red flag number one, see if they own anything and have a portfolio. Right. So I think that's a huge piece of it. The hardest part about where I saw myself losing money was the turn rate. So when I learned on the first ones, oh, the turn rate was super low. They just weren't turning it quickly enough. And then I realized their process was, and I'm not sure what your process is, but their process was, okay, it's going to go on the market. I want it to be pre-marketed, right? Like we know it's coming. Like, let's start putting those photos up that we had before. They didn't do that. And then they would make sure that they had to have the, before somebody would be shown the property, they wanted to give them the $30 fee and have all these things done. They had to jump through hoops before they could even see the property. So now nobody's seeing the property, right? And now it's sitting there and I'm like going crazy saying, hey, I'm losing money by the day. I can own as much real estate as I want, but if it's not rented out, I'm losing money.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a huge red flag, was just the turn. So the second property management company, I'm like, what's your turn rate? I want to see your average turn rate. How do you do that? And again, they said, oh, we have an 8-day turn rate. 8 days. Great. Tell me your process. So they went through this whole thing.
Now, that's a red flag right there. That's an overpromise.
8 days.
Tell me about that. Tell me more about that, Julie.
Yeah. That red flag. I'm getting in on your list here, but I would never guarantee. I would be an idiot if I were guaranteeing my owners an 8-day turn rate on a long-term rental. Short-term rental, that's different, but
yeah, I'm talking about, and all of mine are long-term at this point. They're all long-term rentals. So they had sat 2-3 months, and then I started realizing, wait, what's going on with this electric bill? I'm getting a call from the electric company, and they're like, oh yeah, well, the property management company didn't require that tenant to transfer over, even though it's in their lease, to pay for electricity. And now I had a $3,000 electric bill that I found in several properties that I was like, what? And I found it out because they were sending it to collections because it went to Pure Light Properties. And I was like, oh my God. So so I was like, that's it. You know, I mean, you have to be very careful, even though you have a property management company and they're, you know, they're good at what they do. You guys are great at what you do, but you still want to maintain a relationship where you understand and you get those reports and you see what's going on and you check in with them and you have that line of communication. And maintenance, I had my own maintenance guys for most of the stuff, which I appreciated. You know, they were good about that because they would have their guys look at it, or they'd have my guys. My guys usually won the bid for doing the maintenance piece because I've built a strong maintenance end of it. So those are things that I think you have to really look at. And then of course, what percentage are you paying for that? You know,
That's
always look at
the last question though. I hate to say it, but if I were hiring a property manager, what's your percentage of my rent collected is probably the last thing I'd ask. And you've touched on most of them. I want to go back to the utilities, Lenore, because this is important.
Yeah.
This is something that you've been through that I've never heard of. You're the only one I know that's been through this, but I get it because the tenant is in no way motivated to turn on the power. They're thrilled if you'll pay their power bill for 3, 6, 12 months. They're no problem, right? And so when a property goes vacant, you don't leave the power off, especially in somewhere like Pennsylvania where you need to run the heat. And here in Savannah, you need to be running the air. Like the last thing I want to do is let my gorgeous property that's completely livable get moldy. Like, and that will happen very quickly. So as soon as you know you have a move out, it is my job as the property manager or the owner or both to go turn on the utilities. But then once a new tenant is found, it is the property manager's job to say, Mr. Smith, the power will be turned, you know, usually I give them a day. If they move in on Tuesday, the power will be turned off on Wednesday, period. And I'm letting them know that. Usually me telling them that is enough to get them to go get it turned on. But I honestly don't know if they end up going without power. I don't have a clue, but am I doing anything illegal? No, because it's in the lease that the tenant has to cover it. So I make sure that whether the tenant has power or not, I'm not paying the bill. But yes, so it sounds like the property manager, were they paying the utilities out of your rent collected? Is that how it kind of went for several months without you catching it?
You caught it. They weren't turning it off.
Right.
They weren't turning it off. So it just kept going on in my company's name. And they weren't paying anything because I don't know what was happening with those bills. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but there was a transfer of my admin that was happening. And so it was an online bill. I didn't see it. I didn't check into that account because I'm like, I don't think I'm paying for those properties because that should have been shut off and transferred over. You know, I wasn't watching all that. So you got to mind your own store. There's certain things that I think you have to check on and just make sure, hey, are you turning off the utilities or am I? Ask your property management company straight up. What's your process on this? How do you handle this? You know, if your tenant is late on rent, they would call them up and work out something. Not always the best thing to do because now you're 30 days late. Now they're behind. Now you have to file. Now I'm evicting somebody and I'm 2 months off of rent, right? Like it took that long sometimes. So I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just do a 10-day post. Like just post it, file, let's go. Right? Like ask those important questions. Have a list. I always say have a list for all of your things. Have a list for property managers and ask them the same questions over and over. Each one, interview them, and then do the same thing for financial institutions. Do the same thing for lawyers, for attorneys. Anybody you work with, come up with a list of questions and track them.
Lenore, let's talk about maintenance with your property management company. Okay, we're just honing in on property management because there's so much to learn from your story. I love it. So I don't know the answer to this question, but I know you have a lot of vendors and contractor yourself, and you've taken a lot, even though you've had a property manager, you've personally handled a good bit of the renos and the, you know, if something broke. But have you ever had a situation with your property management where they were in charge of repairing it? And was it a good situation? Was it bad? Did they mark it up? Did they not? Like what went on with the property manager? I'm just trying to just identify other ways that we can learn as an audience, you know, what to watch out for when hiring a property manager.
Well, sometimes knowing too much is not good too, right? So maybe I stepped in a couple of times when I shouldn't have, but the one that I didn't step in on that they handled the whole maintenance for. So there was an issue, there was a water leak from the bathroom we have basements, right? In Pennsylvania, you have basements. So there's water coming through the floorboards into the basement. There's an obvious water leak. And they sent somebody over there and they ended up charging me like $890 for this fix. And I kept saying, what are you fixing exactly? Right. And it was, oh, it was a very difficult thing and he had to buy these supplies and this had happened. I was like, okay. So at one point I had somebody go over to the house for something else. And he's like, you realize there's water leaking into the basement and it's now the joist which holds up the floors is now rotting and that tub is going to end up in the basement. And I was like, oh my gosh. So the property manager hired somebody who never went down to the basement to look up, which is the first thing we always do, right? You want to make sure if you have a water leak and you have a basement or another floor, you want to go check what's going on underneath. And he never did that. So he replaced something that probably didn't even need to be replaced and it didn't fix the issue.
And he paid
And so
which he shouldn't have because it wasn't fixed.
yes.
Chandler,
And then I'm not sure what I paid for it. So they ended up reducing that by half. They reduced that maintenance charge in half. And I was like, okay. It still ended up costing me, I think I redid the whole bathroom. I'm like, let's just redo the bathroom. And my guy was great. He redid the whole bathroom, tiled the whole thing, fixed the joist, all for like $2,800, you know, and I had a brand new bathroom and
but when you say they charged you $800, was that going straight to the plumber? Was the property management company charging you $800? Like what was their part in the money that was going back and forth?
They have their own team. So they
Okay.
have their own maintenance people
Okay.
that are on staff that have the trucks that drive up. And so that money.
That sounds great.
Yes.
You go, oh, awesome. But if they're not doing good work, terrible. And Chandler and I just had a situation, and I can't even take credits for just Chandler, but a house that we manage. And, you know, there was a company quoting us several $1,000s for a fix. And Chandler walked in, he said, you're not even touching the issue. So as
I
investors,
see it happen all the time. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we've got to have our own back. Someone's got to know what they're looking at and making sure that the technician is actually fixing the correct thing.
Same thing with housekeeping, right? Like I had an investor who was using a different property management company and they were sending in this house cleaner and she would take these pictures. Oh, it's clean. And then I walked in because I was selling the property for her and it was so dirty. She wasn't taking pictures of everything that was dirty. She was taking pictures and sending it back to the property management company. So the property manager thought it was fine. They didn't have somebody come and follow up to check the premises to make sure that their worker was doing what they needed to do. It's again, processes and systems. What do you do? What's your process? When you have a housekeeper, do you have somebody check on it? When you have a maintenance guy, do you have somebody from your crew go and visually inspect? Like, what is your process?
I can't say this enough. This is, other than location, this is my number 2 rule in real estate is no one gets paid until someone has verified that it has been done correctly. Period.
Beautiful.
No exceptions, ever. Never. Ever.
Ever. Can we, your turn, Chandler.
Never,
Ever.
ever. No one
Ever.
gets paid till I know
Never.
it's been done. And that is eyeballs. That is, I agree with you. No pictures.
That's the thing with property managers. A lot of them don't do that, though. A lot of them aren't very boots on the ground. Let's go get in the property.
And that's their job.
Have to be because
Yeah.
I mean,
And there was this one property that wasn't renting, right? And I'm like, why is this property renting? It's a cute little apartment. I had renovated the whole thing. I only had one tenant in there. I walk in there and I'm like, there was, you know, the paint was all messed up. There were scratches on this one door. There was another issue in the bathroom. And I'm like, fixes that cost a couple $100.
Yeah.
And the property manager is showing it like this. And when I said to them, hey, what's going on? Why in the world wouldn't you just fix this? Oh, we weren't sure if you wanted to spend the money. Really? I spent money on all these other things, but you don't think I'm going to spend a couple $100 to make sure it looks good for a new tenant? No, come on. So I think that's another thing too. I mean, you know, as a property manager, when you're walking in, you want to have it rent ready. You want it to look nice. And it doesn't always take a lot of money to do that. It's just, you got to take care of those couple little things.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the turnover rate. I call like vacancy like the silent cash flow killer because it can kill cash flow quick. And What are some things that you're doing to make that turnover rate quicker?
Yeah, so I took over property management. I'm using a software tool called Rent Ready,
Yeah.
and I really like Rent Ready. So they can put in maintenance tickets. I collect all my rent through that, and it has a great little tool where I can upload pictures, and then for an extra couple dollars, like $15, it'll not only send it out to everybody, but also Zillow, which is the gorilla, right? So it sends it out to to Zillow with, as here's the rental. And so it hits all these things. And then I use the pictures from when it was nice. And when I had just done it, I just re-upload those pictures. So as it's coming up, I start doing that. And then I funnel in people into an Excel document. Again, I'm a big ask the questions, right? So I have these like 15 questions that I've identified, maybe it's 10, that I love. And the two important things in my area, I think every area is different. A neighborhoods, B neighborhoods, C neighborhoods. My big qualifiers are how long have you been employed? Like if they have stability at that job for a while. And what's my other one? I definitely look at how, what their gross income is, and I do the 30%. I want to make sure that if it's like a, $2,000 rental, I want to make sure that they're bringing in $6,000, right? So I do that. But that by getting all those qualifiers, I can then whittle it down to 3 people, start calling them, and I'm actually doing self showings. It's my property. I own it. I put a lockbox on there. I secure that area. I have them send me my driver's license because I'm out of town right now. So I'll have them send that to me. I'll have my maintenance guy over, check everything, send me all the videos, make sure everything's good. And then they're going in, they're looking at the property. And then I have them go into Rent Ready. It looks at a background check really quickly. So I have quickly identified a good tenant. I give them the photos, give them a quick walkthrough. Then I have them go on to Rent Ready, which they get charged $40, which does the full background check, credit check, the whole thing. I can see everything that's going on and make that decision right away. If I want to take them, I say yes, and boom, they're already a tenant. I send them the lease, the deposit, everything. And so I've figured out this system that is actually working pretty well.
Cool. Good. So I want to go into some agent stuff now. I know you've been an agent for since what, 2018, you said?
Yes, I became a realtor in Pennsylvania in 2018.
Okay. So you're still an agent now, just working with investors only, or?
So when I started in 2018, Keller Williams said I was crazy. They're like, you can't do that. You can't work with just investors. You'll never make any money. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I can, because nobody was doing that. Right. So I had a team. I had a couple of different realtors on my team, and that's all we did. And we just focused on investors and investment properties. And I started to realize, bigger pockets. Like I know Julie's big on bigger pockets, right? You have these people who are learning to be investors. They need a realtor who understands, like you guys do. Like you're investors and you're realtors. I call them investment realtors. That's kind of I'm the original investment realtor just because I called myself that. And so I really focused in on 2018, 2019. I started to hone my systems and my processes and say, this is it. I'll sell a property, or I'll sell a commercial property. I can sell a residence all day long because I understand the mechanics of it. But really working with investors is my love. I love walking investment properties and really working with that. So then when I came down to Florida, I got my broker's license. So now I'm a Florida broker, and I'm also a realtor in Pennsylvania, and Keller Williams shares that split so that I have both offices out of Pennsylvania and Florida. And so I still have clients up there, that once in a while I'll get on a plane and go look at $1 million, $2 million property with them all day long. It makes sense because they trust me and they know me. And oh, Chandler, that's what it is. I've learned how to walk a property as a realtor.
Okay.
And one of my clients goes with me. They're like, what? And I teach them how to do it, what I do and what I look for. I can do it in 10 minutes, and once I stand out front and I look at a building, now you're dealing with Pennsylvania. I'm talking about Pennsylvania right now. And I say in the front right-hand corner, when we go into that basement, there's going to be water in there. They're like, what? We go, I've never been in the house. Walk into that, and there's water in the basement. They're like, how did you know? I'm like, because the exterior tells me 50% of the problems, right? I see a gutter coming down, and it's buried right into the front corner because that's what they used to do. But all of those pipes have now disintegrated. And so all that water just goes right into the basement, into that corner. So what does that happen? Most people look at it and say, oh, I can't buy this property, it's got mold or whatever. Psst, I love that. I can solve that with a gutter, pour some cement in that hole, put in a new gutter, downspout, and we just run it out. There's no problem in that basement. We clear out that, we'll get rid of the mold, and then we'll also put like dehumidifiers down there, whatever. So now everybody who's walking away from a property, my investors are walking towards it,
Yeah.
knowing this is a solid investment. So I've learned how to walk a property
You're
and
helping
show
your
them what to look for.
buyers with that fear factor, because
Yes.
someone who's not as experienced as yourself is going to go, oh no, all these problems, and you're going, look at these problems. That's how I do it too, is what, Lenore, look at all these problems. This is how we're going to get a lower price point, and then I'll help you with the solutions, which really aren't that scary. But that's
I
fantastic.
love that about you, Julie. I mean, you want to hear the craziest story I did with one of the problem properties?
Let's
Yeah.
hear it.
So I'm crazy. Let's just put it out there. I'm a realtor and I'm an investor, right? I'm crazy. And so it's COVID, and there's a 3-unit that one of my investors is buying. And he's buying in this area new for the first time, and he freaks out. Oh my God, we can't get into that last unit. We're closing in a week. I think I just need to terminate the sale. I'm done. Like, let's just walk away. And I got off the phone. I go, give me a minute. I got off the phone and I sat there and I'm like, what does this guy need? He's totally in fear, right? He's totally in fear. He's afraid he's going to buy something that's going to be terrible. He's going to lose all his money. That one little tiny 400 square foot apartment is going to ruin him, which I knew it wasn't. It was a great investment. So I'm like, what's going to make him feel comfortable? So I wrote him an offer. I wrote him an offer on his property 10 days post sale. So when he closed 10 days later, my offer was good. Hey, I'll buy that house, that property from you at exactly the same price you just bought it. And he was like, what? And he goes, are you kidding me? And I'm like, no, I think it's a really good property. You don't want it, I'm going to buy it, but I really think you should have it. So I'm going to give you this opportunity and remove your fear and the risk. And I'm going to buy that property. So 9 days goes by post sale. I call him up. Hey, am I buying your property? He goes, heck no, I love that property. He's like, I got into the unit. It looks great, blah, blah, blah. Since then, he has made so much money on that property. Unbelievable. It has gone up in equity. He raised all the rents like crazy. So I wish I owned it. That's all I'm saying. But I wanted to figure out how could I remove his fear and his risk? What could I do? And that's a crazy story. I've never heard of anybody doing that. But as a realtor, I was like, fine, I'll buy it.
You said, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is what you said.
Yeah.
And I love that, Lenore. That's great.
That
Well,
is-
I know that you're still selling real estate, you're still buying and investing in real estate and all the things, but you have a course for realtors. And
Yes.
Taylor and I want to hear more about it, because, we're in the space too. We're, tell us about your course.
Yeah, so I had this vision where I met somebody in a mastery event, Tony Robbins mastery event, and he created a course for doctors to learn how to be investors. And I got on the plane and I'm just writing, right? I'm like, wait, if he can create a course for that, I can create a course for realtors to work with investors. Because I feel like he's going to have this whole pipeline of people, but who are the realtors that are going to serve these like doctors and lawyers? They've got to have mindset. What do they need? And honestly, that's when I came up with that idea, but it wasn't until probably a year and a half, 2 years later that I actually created the course. Again, through lots of fear, I got, why me? Why am I creating this course? How am I, why am I worthy to do this? Why does anyone want to listen to me? And then I realized when I called my accountant, I said, what did I do last year? And she's like, you did like 1.3 million in gross sales in between real estate and being a realtor. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, what did I do this year? She's like, 1.1. I'm like, okay, now I have a story. I took nothing, right? I had no cash, figured out lenders, figured out private money, figured out hard money, figured out how to be an investor and be a realtor at the same time. And I had gained a huge amount of traction, and going from a minus net worth at, like, when I got divorced, minus $47,000 to over $1 million in net worth in about 22 months. I had a story to tell. So now I had a little bit more confidence to create that course to teach realtors how to do what I wanted to do, which was to work with investors, but most importantly, to help them build their own portfolio, right? Because there's so many realtors that you meet out there that don't own any rentals, right?
Mhm.
So do the dual thing. Be you guys. Everybody wants to be you, right? Where you are investors, you're also realtors. I mean, that's the best. You're the best situation to see those properties and to help your investors. You learn and grow more as an investor. You teach that back to your realtors. So this course has 6 modules. First one being mindset. Got to start with mindset. You're working with millionaires, like people who have millions of dollars sometimes, right? These investors they're moving and shaking. You got to have that millionaire mindset. So we start with mindset and move. What's that?
You're working with millionaires and also future millionaires. Like, it's exciting to be the agent of an investor at any level, because they're going big.
You know they're going, and you're helping them to grow long-term sustainable wealth. How exciting is that? To be a realtor helping people like create family legacy, and you're a part of that. Like, I just thought it was such a gift. So that's what I did. I created this course that's 6 modules. It walks you through the language of investment. It shows you spreadsheets. It gives you all kinds of tools about working with tenants and tenant letters. It has, a kind of what is the process for how do you work with your investors? I take them through 5 steps and how to really make sure you have a plan for them and a blueprint, and you can help them be successful. Like, one of my favorite things is I say to my investor, okay, so what's your plan for this year? Oh, I want to buy two investment properties this year. Yep. Let's make it 4. I always double it. Whatever they say, I double it. Well, wait, I'm like, we can do this. We just need a plan, right? So that's one of my favorite things is double it. So the blueprints in there, and then the marketing, like, how do you find investors? How do you keep them for life? How do you treat them? Because when you're a realtor working with residential, you're constantly flipping over your clients, right? You're finding new people to sell new houses. When you're focused on investors, you're building relationships and you're understanding what their long-term goals are and how can you serve them to help them and their family and hit their goals and objectives. Like, it's so exciting. So there's more relationship building and there's more time spent to getting to know that person, and to really, for me, it's so fun. It's so fun. And it's recession proof, right? Like, doesn't
There you
matter
go.
where you're at, you're always buying or selling real estate. So why not do it with investors? And I love it.
Yeah,
I love numbers too.
Market goes down, sales go up if you're an investment realtor. Very cool. That's great.
Lenore, where can people find that course, and where can people find you to reach out?
That's a great question. So investment-realtor.com. So investment-realtor.com is where my course lives. It's a little bit about me. I think there's some links to get a hold of me personally. I mean, you can always, I'm gonna put my phone number out here. I put my phone number out every once in a while. Somebody calls me, somebody tracked me down and made me coach them. They like found me somewhere, found my phone number. So my phone number is 610-417-4300. So 610-417-4300 is my phone number. Or check out investment-realtor.com. And it'd be great to just have more investment realtors to serve all the great investors in our country and around the world. Why not? Let's go to Italy. Let's do this in Italy. You want to go to Italy, Chandler?
I'd love to.
Me too.
Love to.
I know you and me are, Julie, you and I are going for sure to Italy. But like, it would be fun just to do business around the world and, connect investors and to realtors. And I just love it.
Well, and agents tell me all the time, oh, I'd love to work with investors, but they're intimidated. There's a whole new vocabulary. It's just showing a house to an investor and showing a house to someone who's going to live in it. Those are 2 very different jobs. I mean, they're just looking at very different things. There's usually no CAPI in the ones that they're looking to live in. And I just find those kind of boring.
Well, I'm the same way. In fact, module 2 is called the language of investment, because when I did my research, I found the same thing. Everybody wanted to build confidence. So my course is about building confidence, working with investors and investment properties.
Well, Lenore, we appreciate you coming on. And if the audience listening, go check it out. I think it's be a really cool course. I know I'm going to go check it out. But yeah, we appreciate you coming on, and telling us a little bit about your story, and can't wait to see what you do in the next few years.
Yes, thank you so much, Lenore. And I'm going to speak as an agent here. Most agent courses that you have to take have really nothing to do with being an agent. And
Yeah.
Lenore's course has everything to do with being an agent, which is kind of a very refreshing thing. So I think what you're doing is awesome. And congrats to you. And thank you.
Thank
I
you.
learned a lot, and it's been a pleasure hearing more about your portfolio.
You guys are the best. I love this combo. I love this combo here. The two of you together. It's so fun. Thank you for having me on today. This was such a blessing. I appreciate it. You guys have fun. Have fun at whatever you do. You're always laughing. So
There
Always.
you go.
Thank
have a great one.
Well, thank you for listening to episode 37 with Lenore Moore. I really enjoyed that podcast. I think Lenore has a lot of interesting information, not interesting, just really good information
Yeah.
that was brought to that podcast. So, what do you think, Julie?
It was great. I'm Lenore's biggest fan. I mean, she can do no wrong. And Lenore has learned things the hard way, and she's done it all as a single mom. I mean, I just can't give her enough props for everything she has going on in her life. And
Okay.
there's a lot of respect there.
Yeah, for sure. So, today's Valentine's Day. Do you have any plans?
I do. I mean, just dinner at home, but it is Valentine's Day, and I'm excited about Valentine's Day because it's funny because I'm kind of an oddball. I do things, I kind of march to the beat of my own drummer. And I'm working on a points course for real estate investors. And this is really the first time I've ever talked about it, Chandler. I know I've been kind of telling you for a while, but in the points world, we have what we call player one, player two, player three, player four. And these are people that you're, helping to gain points. So I'm just giving away a little bit of my course here. So I'm in my family, I am player one. My husband hates dealing with credit cards, banks, phone calls, all of it. He's never really dealt with it. So I'm player one because that's really my job, and it always has been. My husband, Don, is my player two. And so, we're trying to save up points because we have some travel that we want to do, and you have to get these, bonuses. And so this morning, the first thing we did on Valentine's Day was I referred him for a card and he referred me for a card. And I was like, oh, it's so romantic. We're sharing points, because Don will refer me for a card and he'll get a bonus. And then I'll go after those points, and then I'll refer him for a card and I'll get a bonus. So anyway, that's the romantic thing that we have done so far today. Not really anything to do with Valentine's Day, but it hit me that we were doing that on Valentine's Day, and it was kind of fun. So I am very honored to have a wonderful player two in my life, and I will be feeding him a good dinner this evening. So that's really my plans. What about you, Chandler? Do you have any big plans for Valentine's Day?
So, I have to push mine off probably for another week or two. My girlfriend is in Pikeville, Kentucky.
Pikeville,
In the middle of
Kentucky.
nowhere. Normally, I can send flowers over or do something, but Pikeville is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, nothing's around there.
You couldn't get her flowers today? Like it was that remote?
Couldn't get nothing.
Wow.
So I told her I'm pretty good with. We've been doing long distance for a while now, and I'm pretty good with like. She'll like get here and be like, "What is this?" And I'll be like, this is your birthday. This is Valentine's. This is."
Aw. You make up for it.
So that's what we gonna have to do, yeah, just for the meantime until she's done with PA school, and then we'll.
She's lucky to have you, Chandler. She's lucky. So I'm
I'm,
sure
I'm just a big gift giver, so I love giving. So
well, maybe you'll get to
yeah,
see her this weekend and you guys can celebrate.
there you go. Hopefully,
Hopefully.
but we appreciate you listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, share to everybody that you can think of, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.